Were we just talking about Charlie Pride a moment ago?
We sure were.
Well, good morning.
I think the very first concert at the Mississippi Coast Coliseum, when they opened it up, Mississippi's very own Charlie Pride, I remember when that happened. Congressman Guest, you were around, but you're a little younger than me. You may not remember that.
What year was that, gentlemen?
I was going to say somewhere around 1979.
Yeah, I'd have been 9 years old. So I had the opportunity to hear him in concert, but know his music well. He is a great ambassador for our state.
He really was a great guy. And there are not many of us left, Congressman Guest. We include you in that. The studio audience, happy to see you this morning. We are always excited to get a chance to talk to you. A lot of stuff going on in Washington, but it's interesting. I was talking to Peyton yesterday about some subjects we may talk about this morning. And one of the things she brought up is, of course, you're chairman of the Homeland Security Subcommittee. And you had a hearing on unmanned aircraft and drones. This is so cool to me. But even cooler, the fact that Mississippi State is involved in this, and you had one of the witnesses in your committee was Brian Farrell, the director of I don't even know
the Rapid Flight Center. Yeah,
the
Rapid Flight Center, and they do a lot of work both on DoD and the Homeland Security agencies doing drone research, everything from building drones for use in the field to analyzing components and seeing how components interact with one another. They're starting to build drones where the pieces are fairly easily replaceable. So, instead of building a single big unit, and then if there's a malfunction, a crash, something like that, having to replace the unit in its entirety, they're able to kind of plug and play, if you will, and change out various pieces to get those units back up and running and in the field. And so they do an incredible job there at Mississippi State at the Rapid Flight Center. They're also an FAA Center of Excellence, so they will also do private work. They've got a big airspace area where they're able to test drones. They're under various conditions, both day and night. And so they really are kind of one of these hidden gems that people don't know about. I like to think about Southern Miss. I know they do a lot in the maritime world. And I don't know if a lot of your listeners know they also do maritime drone research. And so our universities are really on the cutting edge of some of these very important fields as it relates to autonomous vehicles, whether they be drones, whether they be maritime, both on top of water and below. And then also some off-road vehicles that they do there at the Cal Center at Mississippi State. So incredibly proud of our universities, what they're doing. And so for us to have the ability to highlight that by having Brian testify before Congress, I thought that was a big win for our state.
Yeah, it's look, I'll tell you, Mississippi State, what a great, we're a Mississippi State sports affiliate. We play pretty much all of their sports here on our radio station. We've been a Mississippi State affiliate for quite some time, and we always enjoy the sports aspect of it. But when you really start talking about what matters, these are the kind of things that really matter in our country and supporting our country and the possible warfare that we might see in the future. I mean, these are guys that are actually out there doing the work that's going to help us to be the best in that field. And I think that's where we're headed, these autonomous vehicles. And when you think about advanced artificial intelligence and things like that, I mean, I'm sure they have integrated all of that into it. But, in Mississippi, we also build those drones down in my home county, in Jackson County.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. I mean, everything from the research and development in at Mississippi State, and then what some of the things that Southern's doing. So we have drone manufacturers here. And look, those drones, they serve as a force multiplier. Just look at their ability on the border. I mean, we can put a drone up, and that drone can monitor, tens of miles of geographical location. And then, once those drones spot something, it's immediately reported back to Border Patrol, and then they can go and they can immediately respond and apprehend individuals coming across the border. You've got smaller drones that they can use, tactical drones that they can fly into, say, a building if law enforcement is getting ready to have to make entry into the building. We know in warfare, we've seen how drones have been used in Europe in the war with Ukraine and Russia. I mean, one of the reasons that Ukraine is still standing today is because they have been able to utilize drones so effectively to hold back a much larger, better equipped military in the Russian army. So this is going to continue to be a growing field. Mississippi is on the cutting edge of that, and as Mississippians, we should be extremely proud of what we're doing.
Yeah, we are. And, of course, Mississippi has always been tied to defense of our country. We've got Ingalls Shipyard. We have, even down here or up here in Hattiesburg from the coast, we have, Camp Shelby where the people train from all over the country. We have a tank training range there. I mean, you go up even other parts of the state where we have training for pilots, I think, around Meridian. Is that in your district?
Yeah, it is. So you've got naval pilot training there at Meridian Naval Air Station at Columbus Air Force Base. You have training on behalf of the Air Force. You mentioned Keesler, the important mission that Keesler plays on the Mississippi Gulf Coast. In addition to being an important military base, they still fly the Hurricane Hunters there out of that Keesler facility. We've got the Stennis Space Center on the Mississippi Gulf Coast, where you see that the Navy has one of their large supercomputers there. Over at Vicksburg, the Army Corps of Engineers has their large research and development center there, ERDIC, and they also house one of the supercomputers. You mentioned Camp Shelby. Some of our Air Guard assets, both in Jackson at the 172nd and over in Meridian at the 186th. And so we are blessed to have some outstanding men and women who serve our nation, who call Mississippi home. And I think that is something that Mississippi should be forever prideful of, the fact that we have great people and that we contribute probably more, I would say, per capita than any state of the union to our national defense.
And that is awesome. We love that because, well, Mississippians are typically patriotic and we love helping our country. And, these are things that really make a difference when you start talking about an armed conflict somewhere. I mean, you think, and I think about the drones again, back to that. I have seen, and I'm sure you have, some of the videos that have escaped the war zone and ended up on Instagram and other places. I mean, these drones are deadly. And they don't risk any lives by being so deadly either.
You're right, and I think as we look at fighting, the next battle, the next war, I think drones are going to play an incredible role. One is they provide surveillance, the ability to have eyes on the battle time, real-time information coming in to the people who are they're trying to coordinate what's happening on the battlefield. We've seen that they've been incredibly effective about being weaponized, where they're taking out armored vehicles. We've seen drones that have taken out various military installations and bases, also being able to attack infantry as they are approaching. And so, I think the use of drones in warfare right now, I think we're just kind of on the very cusp of seeing some of the things that the drones will be used for, but also in law enforcement. They are a key tool in law enforcement as we're seeking to make sure that we're keeping the public safe. If you have a big event, whether it be a college football game or Super Bowl or World Series, law enforcement uses drones so that they can make sure that they can surveil the area and make sure that they're keeping all of us safe. I know one thing Mississippi State does is after a disaster, they immediately send their drones up to be able to get a clear picture of the areas that have been hardest hit and where we need to get resources to certain areas for an immediate response. And so that is something that's just incredibly powerful tool that is building going forward. And Mississippi is going to continue to design, produce, and operate those drones.
I want to switch subjects for a minute. One of the things, and this thought just came into my mind when we're talking about drones. China, one of the biggest manufacturers of drones, and many drones that that people have that are just for personal use are made in China. We've got tariffs now in China that have caused China to take some pushback actions against us. And I'm just wondering, how you feel about this. Give me your thoughts on the tariffs for China. I know that President Trump is trying to get a fair trade deal with China, but it looks like China has decided they're going to push back and push back hard. How will that affect us? And, what are we doing in the United States to create our own antibiotics, drugs, things of that nature that we need for surgeries and for infections and all that? I mean, there's a lot of things to consider here. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, just on the tariffs in general, and again, just speaking on China, not all the other countries, but I think the tariffs on China were much needed. We have seen China manipulate their currency. We have seen them steal our trade secrets. We've seen China have dumped products into the American market, try to hurt American manufacturers. We see the trade deficit with China continuing to grow. And so China, particularly over the last decade or more, I'll say, Michael, has really manipulated things to have an unfair trade advantage with the United States. Trump, when he was in office the first time, kind of began that pushback. Then COVID hit and everything kind of reset. We did not see the Biden administration being aggressive at all with China. And so now we see Trump is trying to come in and he's trying to level that playing field. And he's using tariffs in a way to bring China to the negotiating table so that we can negotiate fair trading terms. What is that going to do to us in the short term? Well, in the short term, at least on some of the goods that we buy, we're going to see prices go up. Not all goods, but some goods that flow from China. And so we as consumers, we've got to do a better job of shopping around, trying to find goods made in countries that aren't impacted by those tariffs. But I do think that the high tariff levels that we see right now with China, I believe that they will be fairly short-lived, and that may be anywhere from 6 weeks to 6 months. But I do not see, or I do not expect to see, that the tariffs at these rates will remain in place for a long period of time. And you're right, we need to begin to nearshore to bring back some of that key manufacturing that we've allowed to leave the country. You talked about pharmaceuticals. I think that is a great example. We don't want to be dependent on China or any other nation in the world to supply our medical needs. And so we have to encourage these companies by tax rebates, by tax incentives to relocate to the United States and begin producing pharmaceuticals, begin producing electronics, some of the key things that we'll need for national security and just for our everyday quality of life. We've got to seek to try to bring those jobs, those manufacturing jobs back, and so that we're no longer just a nation of consumers, but we're once again a nation of producers.
That's great. That is exactly what we need. Less than a minute left. You guys are on a 2-week break, I know, but you still work. You're home. You're doing your stuff here in the district. What's the next big thing coming up in Congress? And like I said, about 30 seconds.
Yeah, budget reconciliation. We want to make the Trump tax cuts permanent. The House wants to do so without increasing our national debt, which is going to cause us to try to find between $1.5 and $2 trillion in spending cuts. And so once we return from our Easter recess, that will be the key item that we'll be focused on for the next several weeks.
Gotcha. Congressman Michael Guest, it is always a pleasure to have you, sir. Thank you for joining us. We appreciate you, and we'll talk to you again soon.